Africa is life in 4K. Now, that might sound like a slightly ridiculous thing to say, but I actually think it's the most accurate way to describe Africa after 30 years of going there. I mean, the feeling of being there, not just the wildlife and the landscape, but the sensation that everything is somehow more vivid and more present than ordinary life tends to feel these days. I think more and more people are starting to realise why that matters. And here's the odd thing though, it's 4K, but it's also analogue. Bear with me here. I'll explain what I mean by that later. Anyway, at some point, for a lot of people, all those holidays that used to feel really exciting start to feel like they're missing something. Do you know what I mean? You can't always say what it is, but you know, you just have this feeling like, okay, this isn't what it used to be. And Africa is an exception. And I think that's why more and more people are finding their way there. And the statistics show this. It's not just me. It's not just wishful thinking. More and more people are wanting something more genuine and they're finding it in Africa. And this happens often after years of wondering, is this really for me? Is Africa really for me? I'm Andy Higgs, the Campfire Connoisseur. I've been going back to Africa for over 30 years. This episode is about why. I've been going back to Africa for over 30 years. Not because it's my job, it became my job because I kept going back. Every time I land on that continent, something resets. I've tried to explain this to a lot of people so many times over the years, but I've never quite managed it. So I'm going to cover 3 things today in this episode. Number 1 is why holidays are starting to feel like they're missing something, and why that's happening more and more. Then I'm going to talk about what Africa actually offers. And finally, I'm going to talk about whether Africa is for you and how to know. But first of all, it's time for a story. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. So I'm going to take you back now to the first time I went to Africa with my family, with my wife and daughter. And this was some years ago now, and we went to southern Africa. So the main focus of the trip was Botswana. But we started in South Africa and we ended up in Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. It was an amazing trip and it was a very different one from what we were expecting, what we've ever done before. So it was a group trip, and what this entailed was there were 12 of us altogether in a custom-built truck that drove around in these countries that we went to, following a specific route with everything was arranged in advance. Of course, we didn't know everyone else on the truck. So on this trip, it wasn't just Rebecca, Mariana and myself, but it was also Rebecca's friend Helena and her mum Gunil. So we were 5 people in total, and there were 12 people that can go on this truck at any given time. And the other 7 spaces were all full as well. And that were 2 other families, one quite large family, I think, of 5, and then a guy and his granddaughter. So we started in Johannesburg. We'd flown down. It was a long trip, of course, from Norway, but we had a night in a hotel not far from the airport. So we slept the night there because we had to start very early the next day, going to another hotel where the truck was starting from. And we were going to have a quick briefing and then board the truck and then drive basically into Botswana that same day. So we got there and we were all a little bit nervous, I think. We didn't really know what to expect. We had no idea what the other members of the group were going to be like. We were introduced to our guides, Moses and Tawanda, 2 great people that I'm still in contact with after all these years. Fantastic guides and great people. We had a really good time. Anyway, so we boarded the truck and that was it. We were off. And I remember quite well, just after the first 30 minutes of driving, it was like, okay, this is something different. I mean, now there's no screens. No one's looking at their phone, but everyone is present. We got to know each other. The great thing about these trips is that you all muck in and help, you know, so you're helping making the food, you're doing the washing up afterwards and so on. You split the chores, but mostly, I mean, it's a very comfortable experience. We're staying in lodges. We also camped a couple of nights, which is part of it. You have to. That was in the Okavango Delta. Amazing experience under canvas. But it was a very comfortable trip, but the idea is that you have some limited participation. That made it quite different. You know, we're responsible for each other, we're sharing, we're talking. We really got to know these other families well. And it was just a fantastic experience. But there was a point not long after we set off, and it was just like, wow, hey, we're not looking at our phones. We're not communicating through screens. We're talking to each other. We're getting to know new people. This is, wow, we've missed this. It wasn't specifically about it being Africa. It was just like there was no buffer, no barriers between strangers, and a shared purpose. And then when we went on our first game drive together in the truck, you know, looking for animals, and just everyone's focused on the same thing. We're all from different backgrounds, but we're all got this shared focus on, hey, what we're going to find, and the excitement of not knowing. We had our schedule, we knew where we were going, but you don't know what's going to happen. To share that with strangers was a fantastic experience. And it was like, this is what holidays can be about. This is an adventure, not just a holiday. For me, it had an additional magic of being with so many first timers on safari. It's something very magical to be able to watch the genuine excitement that I still have on every single safari, but watching it on someone's face for the very first time is really special. And the fact that it was my wife and daughter and her friend and her mum and all the others, it's just great. Being in nature, being close to these wild animals, it's something really special. And we all felt it, and it's a group dynamic, and it was something that we'd all obviously been waiting for. The planet. This is the planet we're part of, and we're really a part of it. We're not far removed. We're not sitting behind a screen in an office in Oslo. We are down here. We are on the ground. These elephants are right here. These lions are over here. It's amazing. It's amazing. This is where we're from. This is who we are. It's pretty deep, right? And here's another story. This is from a beautiful resort town that we had come back to for a second visit in Sardinia. But I also felt it in a couple of other places. It was a typical family holiday, you know, beach, lovely food, culture, but there's something about it after, I think it was maybe the 5th night, we're having dinner at the restaurant and we'd been there before. And so it's nice to come back and have that feeling of familiarity. But it's just, I just had this feeling, I'm not sure I want to do this next year, you know. I'd like to come back here again, but not next year. Let's do something else. This is a bit too samey. I really want to make this point that it was not a feeling of being ungrateful. I loved that place. I love going to other places in Europe and enjoying something different. But that's the point. It has to feel different. And when you start doing this again and again and again, it loses that uniqueness. It almost felt a bit too routine. And that's so weird to say that, to be like 5 nights into a 2-week holiday in Sardinia, in a beautiful place with great food, great company, and so on. But, you know, after a while, you need more. I need more. Maybe I'm unusual. But I don't think so. I think you recognize it too. That feeling. It's like, yeah, okay, we can continue to do this. And there are people who do. They go back to the same place, Gran Canaria, Greece, whatever. They go back a year after year after year. And they enjoy that feeling of going back to a familiar place. And for some people, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. I'm never going to go out there and criticize anyone for the choices they make with their holidays. Come on, that's not my gig, right? I've got to say, I think it's something more than just going back to the same place again and again. My feeling is that everywhere is starting to look the same. Have you not noticed this? You go to a shopping centre in Oslo, you go to a shopping centre in London, Estonia, Finland, Bulgaria. It doesn't matter. They look the same now. You've got the same chain stores, and even the design of the shopping centres looks the damn same, right? If you go to Poland and you're in Warsaw, you go to a shopping centre, and then you could transport yourself magically to Oslo or to London or to Barcelona to a shopping centre, a shopping mall, you might even not notice that you've moved countries, right? It's the same chains, the same restaurants, the same design. They all look the same. The shopping, it's the same architect. I swear to God, it's the same architect going around creating these anonymous shopping malls all over Europe. 20, 30 years ago, everything was different, right? Do you remember those times? 20, 30 years ago, you'd be traveling around Europe. You go from one country to the other. You actually crossed the border. There was a physical border. You changed currency. You had different, there was, every country had its own uniqueness. And of course, there is still a lot of unique culture in Slovakia that isn't the same as Finland. But you've got the euro. We don't even have different currencies anymore. You've got McDonald's, you've got Dressman, you've got Henderson Marriott, H&M, whatever you call it. They're the same. They look the same. Again, to make it more personal, I mean, I lived in Berlin right after the wall came down. It was an unbelievable time. Everything was changing overnight. Of course, this is the end of an era and the beginning of a new one, reunification. But this was happening all over, like former Eastern Europe, and also other cities in Europe were developing. There was something dynamic, things were changing, you'd have new stores coming, new ideas, new things were happening, old things were moving out, new things were coming in. But it was dynamic, it was something moving. 20 years later, I can't recognise the place I used to live in Berlin. I used to live in East Berlin, right? I lived in East Berlin right after the wall came down, Prenzlauer Berg, which is now like yuppie hell, if you ask me. When I lived there, it was, you cannot recognise it. And they pulled everything down. They painted over it. They destroyed it all. They took the soul away, if you ask me. All right, it's personal. I don't want to go to Prenzlauer Berg and feel like I could be in London. And I think that's the thing that's disappointing when you get on the same budget airline, you go to a different capital, a different big city in Europe, but really how much of what I see is the same? That's what I see. The first thing that hits me, and maybe I'm weird, it has been said before, but I see the similarities before I see the differences, and I think that's a shame. I'll tell you where it isn't like that. Africa. That feeling of dynamism, being in somewhere that's moving and changing and growing and developing. I don't feel that in Europe anymore. But I do feel it in Africa. That's not saying everything in Africa is great. It's just how it is. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be somewhere that's dynamic. The reality is that we are living in a time where our world, our everyday life is dominated by screens. I'm talking into one. I've got one here. I've got a camera here. I've got a phone here. It's like this, everything is going via a screen, right? This is not good. This is not who we are. This is not human beings. We are not made to communicate via a third-party instrument. People don't even meet physically anymore. Have you noticed this? I mean, we've gone from a period where we used to go to the pub and meet every day after work. That was just a normal part of life where I grew up, right? And that time. Now, people don't even answer the phone anymore. If someone calls you, you're surprised. It's like, why are you calling me? You can send me a message, you know? We've got to that stage where we actually prefer someone to text us than to take the time and actually listen to their voice. I mean, hello, what is wrong? What is wrong? You see people sitting in the same room texting each other. What? People are physically present, but mentally they're somewhere else. And this is not good. In Africa, everything changes. Being in Africa, particularly on safari, it removes you from this digital trap we've created for ourselves. The attention economy. What a horrible thing. But you can get away from it. In Africa, there are places with no mobile signal. Not only is there no Wi-Fi, there's no phone signal. It's amazing. In Africa, people prioritise other people's company. You sit around a fire at night and talk. You sit around the dinner table and talk. It's not because it's organised and arranged and forced. It's because there's nothing else to do and everything else to say. There are generations of people who have never experienced what it's like to not be able to go online, to not have a phone signal. Isn't that crazy? Once you stop fighting it, that absence of a Wi-Fi signal or an internet connection is an extraordinary feeling of freedom. It really is. And it doesn't take long before you don't even think about it again. I've watched people arrive at remote camps in the middle of nowhere in Africa, jump out of the vehicle, clutching their phones. The first thing they do, almost after being greeted, is look for the signal. By the second night, they're not looking anymore. By the third night, they've completely forgotten about it. Something resets. Something that needs resetting. Africa is life in 4K, but it's also analog. It's the colours, the sounds, the scale, the proximity of wild animals, the unpolluted night sky. You've probably never ever experienced that in your life. In Africa, you take it for granted after a while. It's normal. That's your television. That's your 4K. Your senses that have been dulled by screen time and distraction, they start to work again at full capacity. Everything is intense. But here's what makes it different and not just overwhelming, because it's also analog, right? This is human contact, not mediated by platforms. Your guide knows the animal. He tracked it yesterday, the day before. They've given them names. They follow them. They know what's going on here. That knowledge lives in a person, and it's passed from person to person. It's not downloaded into an app. I believe that Africa is one of the last places on Earth that will not give in to artificial substitutes for human connection. It's not because AI can't give you answers. Of course it can. Just like Google can give you answers, a dictionary, a guidebook. That's not the point, is it? The value is in the relationship, in the human understanding, getting to know someone else. That's what makes Africa special, and that's why you cannot replace this with ChatGPT. Earlier this year, ITB in Berlin, which is the world's biggest travel trade show, I'm just going to have to look at my cheat sheet to get this right. Africa was found to be the region that most closely matches what today's travellers are looking for. Cultural authenticity, ecological integrity, experiences that cannot be replicated. They had 81 million visitors going to Africa in 2025. That's 8% growth, which is the strongest region anywhere on the planet. There's a reason for that. There are many reasons for that. This, I would say, is one of the big ones. The real human experience. It's not for everyone, and it's worth being honest about that. So, is Africa for you? Africa's not a checklist. It shouldn't be about ticking off certain animals, places, experiences. No holiday should be about that. It should be a feeling. A grown-up traveller like you is not someone who needs to be convinced that Africa is amazing. You know that. I'm guessing you're the sort of person that when you see a picture of an open game drive vehicle with no humans in sight, just this savannah or loads of animals or whatever, it moves you. You feel something, right? It's a feeling. But it's not only safari. Africa works as a beach holiday, as a city break holiday. There's culture, there's history, there's fantastic food, wine, come on, or a road trip. You know, there's so many different ways to experience Africa, but all those types of experiences, they are fundamentally different in Africa than they are in Europe or the US. A week on the Kenyan coast is not the same as a week on the coast of Spain. I'm not saying it's necessarily better, it's just different, and I think that's what you're looking for, right? You want something different. That's why you're watching this. It will almost certainly cost you more money, but again, as I'm trying to say in every piece of content I create, it's an investment. It's not just a holiday. It's an investment in something special. And the perfect people for Africa are those that have the time and the money to be able to enjoy it, to be able to spend time, to take it slowly and enjoy it. Not just go in, try to do as much as possible in 7 days and then come back again. That's not what Africa's about. It needs to be savoured. Africa is really perfect for those who maybe are a little bit older, come a bit further, have a bit more money, time, freedom. You know, that's just how it is. Okay, here is something I've never been able to do in 30 years of talking about Africa, but I'm going to try it anyway. I mean, I can tell you facts about it. I can describe what I've seen, but the feeling itself, I can't give you that. No one can. I know this because time and time again I've asked clients who've just come back to describe it. Okay, how would you describe what you've experienced in Africa for someone who's never been? What would you tell them? You know what they always say? You just have to go there. You have to experience it. And that's what it means when something simply can't be put into words. And that does make my job harder, obviously. It would be nice to have simple way of describing this so well in a couple of sentences I could just paste it all over social media and Bob's your uncle. That's not how it works. And the fact that people who've been there can't fully describe it is probably the best possible reason to listen to someone who has been there rather than read about it online. So I'm not going to try to convince you that Africa is going to change your life. I'm going to suggest that if you're watching this and something I've said has felt familiar, then you probably already know that it will. That feeling, the one where those holidays that used to be enough stop feeling like they're enough. That's not a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a sign you've outgrown something, and that's worth paying attention to. In the next episode, I'm going to go deep on private conservancies. What they actually are, how they work, why the experience is so different, and how to tell whether what you're being sold actually is one. There'll be a link in the description once it's live. And if what I've talked about today resonates with you, it sounds like something you felt, there's a link in the description for that as well. Well, in fact, it takes you to a short form where you can give me a few details so I know a bit more about you before we actually speak. That's it. Just a conversation with someone who's been travelling to Africa for 30 plus years and really would like to help you get there and experience it too. I'll never suggest Africa to someone who I don't think it's right for. I find that out very early on in the conversation, and when it is right, you'll know it too.